Hello everyone! This video is intended to offer supplemental information for Project 3, the Multigenre Persuasive Campaign and Rhetorical Rationale. In this video, I'll go over the details of the assignment prompt, discuss the process for approaching this assignment, and explain the purpose of the assignment in the ENC 2135 course sequence. Let's get started! This assignment asks students to investigate a current issue or a debate that's taking place within their academic field, and to take a stance on the topic. Based on both the investigative field research and their rhetorical analysis of two field artifacts, students will compose 3 new genre compositions to convince their audiences to take action. To get started, students will take a stance on the issue within their academic field or discourse community that they selected for Project 2. This project is, ultimately, a persuasive campaign. Students will develop an argument or a persuasive message that they want to communicate. This argument should be informed by both their investigative field research and their rhetorical analysis of the two artifacts. These earlier projects should suggest not only the kinds of arguments that would be appropriate for their discourse community, but also the rhetorical strategies used to communicate in those genres. Next, students will decide what audiences would or should respond to their argument. I'll typically ask students to think about a couple of things. First, consider the rhetorical situation. Given the message, purpose, and context, who would actually hear and respond to the argument? Who is likely to encounter the campaign? Who is in a position to take action in response to the argument? Whether that action is engaging in advocacy work or simply thinking about an issue differently, students should aim for an audience who might actually change as a result of hearing their argument. Second, consider how to make the target audience as concrete and specific as possible. Ultimately, this is going to make students' rhetorical tasks easier and is going to result in a more successful project. Often, students want to believe that their genre compositions are going to be for everyone, but no genre is really for everyone. In fact, genres are almost always targeted to very specific audiences with very specific purposes. Let's say a student decides to create a Twitter thread, and they identify their audience as young adults. Can we be more specific? Does every young adult have a Twitter account or internet access? Are they all going to be English speakers? Once you get started narrowing down the audience, it's easy to continue funneling until you have a solid definition of who your audience is and how they might respond to your message. For this project, students will work through this process to identify at least 2 unique audiences to target. To clarify, students might have 2 genres that target the same audience and 1 genre that targets a different audience. They can, of course, have 3 different audiences, 1 for each genre. The idea, though, is that having more than 1 audience allows students to demonstrate how they can adapt their argument for different rhetorical situations. Then, students will select their genres to compose based on their unique rhetorical situation. Students should think about what genres they and others in their discourse community encounter regularly. They'll likely find that some genres might be better suited to communicate their argument to their target audiences. For instance, Twitter is going to be more appropriate to certain audiences than a newspaper. And there are certain ideas that are better communicated through different genres. If students want to appeal to someone's emotions, for instance, using a genre that employs visuals, like videos or photographs, might be a good way to go. In any case, considering the affordances, constraints, and conventions of different genres will help students to make informed choices and compose realistic genres. Finally, it's okay if students are not experts at composing in these different genres. The goal is to make thoughtful, informed choices that demonstrate that they have carefully considered how to best achieve their purpose, appeal to their target audience, and employ genre conventions. That being said, it's good to help students manage their expectations for what they can create, given their time and level of expertise. Here's an outline of the process that students might engage with for this project. The movement from purpose to audience to genre is presented as a linear process, but in actuality it's probably not going to be that neat or tidy. Students might find that they cycle between these 3 elements as they continue to think about how they work together to influence both their decisions and their rhetorical choices. In addition to the multi-genre campaign, this project includes a rhetorical rationale that offers an explanation of the choices students make in each of their genre compositions and how they see those choices as rhetorically effective for their purpose, audience, and context. Students should also evaluate the effectiveness of their choices and acknowledge when something didn't work out as they intended. The rhetorical rationale is a way for students to provide insight into what they hope to do and to affirm that they made thoughtful, informed decisions as they composed. These kinds of insights are helpful for when instructors evaluate this project because it's not solely up to the instructor to interpret students' intentions. In the rhetorical rationale, students might focus on elements like choice of genre, medium, audience appeals, tone, word choice, selection of images, design elements, etc. The success of a rhetorical rationale hinges on how students explain why they made the choices that they made. It's not enough to say, I used bright colors. Students need to explain why they used bright colors, how they helped the argument, or why they were ideal for their target audience. The word count for this project might seem confusing, but the idea is to provide students with options. Since students use a variety of genres that entail different media choices, they should aim for approximately 500 words across the 3 genre compositions. For instance, one genre might be text-based while the other 2 rely more on visuals or music. With this in mind, students are encouraged to take risks and interrogate the ways that they can compose beyond just traditional writing practices. The rhetorical rationale should be approximately 1,000 words, which is meant to suggest the scope and depth of the rationale. Here's an example of how this project could play out. Let's say that in my project 2, I wrote about the issue of online writing classes. Based on my field research and rhetorical analysis, I would take a stance on this issue and create an argument. Here, I've decided that my argument is that instructors need to have resources and training in order to teach online writing classes effectively. With that argument in mind, I need to think about what audiences are going to most benefit from or need to hear my argument, as well as what genres are going to be appropriate for those audiences. I think writing program directors, the people who are in charge of writing programs at colleges and universities, would need to hear my argument because they're the people that are in power. They're the ones who can actually make policy changes and implement resources and training for instructors who are teaching online. My other audience might be my fellow writing instructors, because, given the current situation where almost everyone is teaching online now, they might struggle adapting to the online situation, or even blame themselves if they think the class isn't going well. I want to help other instructors feel better about the situation and offer them some resources to be more effective online. For those 2 different audiences, I've identified 3 potential genres that I could create. For the writing program directors, I selected a more formal genre, a conference paper, because I can use scholarly evidence to support my claims. There's even a conference in my field that's called the Council of Writing Program Administrators, where I could hypothetically deliver this paper and persuade the directors to implement these resources into their own programs. For fellow writing instructors, I don't need to be as formal. Something like a training video that I could post on YouTube that offers some beginning tips and tricks for what instructors maybe absolutely need to know before they start teaching online could be helpful. I'd use humor, I try and make it fairly short, and then for my final genre, I could create a glossary of terms. Online writing instructors have a lot of specific terminology that they need to know, things like synchronous, asynchronous, hybrid, and if I were a new online instructor, I know I would benefit from a key term glossary that defines each term and offers examples of how they can apply those terms to their classrooms. From here, I would actually create the 3 genres that I've listed and write my rhetorical rationale. As students imagine their own projects, remember that it's okay to come up with a hypothetical scenario or compose from the perspective of someone else, especially if they think that it would make their genres more effective or credible. So, why are we doing this? First, this course is focused on genre, but so far we've really only composed print-based or text-based genres. This project provides students with an opportunity to examine genres outside of academia and beyond printed alphabetic texts. Students can compose in genres that they might use in their academic or professional fields. Second, this project allows students to apply the definition of genre that we've discussed in class, exploring the relationships between purpose, audience, and context. And finally, it's a fairly practical assignment. It's unlikely that students are going to ever write a rhetorical analysis essay outside of our classroom, but considering the rhetorical situation while composing any kind of text is going to continue to serve students beyond this class. Students get to practice making considerations for how to appeal to specific audiences, how to fit within the expectations of different genres, and how to achieve their intended purposes. I've included a list of possible genres here that students could potentially use for this project. It is by no means exhaustive, but I include it to perhaps offer inspiration or maybe to provide a sense of what's possible. Students should be encouraged to create whatever makes sense to them and to contact their instructors for feedback. Finally, I've listed some free tools that students can use for digital design, audio recording, video editing, and web design. Some of my personal favorites include Canva for graphic design, Pixlr as a free version of Photoshop, Clipchamp for video editing, and Wix for websites or blogs. I hope this video is helpful to you. Thanks for watching!